Welcome to the latest edition of In Focus. I'm your host, Taylor Martinez. In light of recent political events, now seems to be the best time to stand together and celebrate Hispanic culture. Today our guest is Chair of the Department of Chicano and Chicana Studies here at Cal State Fullerton, James Rodriguez. Thank you, James, for being here today. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having having me.
Thank you for coming. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I come from Calexico, California, which is a small town on the border between California and Mexico. I'm one of 9 children, and from Calexico, I went to Pomona College in Claremont, and then from Claremont, I went to Stanford University to get my PhD. And my first academic position was at San Diego State, where I was a professor of education. And for the past 10 years, I've been here at Cal State Fullerton as a professor in child and adolescent studies, and I'm also currently the chair of Chicano Studies.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do as chair?
Sure. So as chair, my primary role is to support the work of the faculty, to do things that allow the faculty to do their thing, because our primary function as a department is to serve students. And so a lot of the work that the chair does is not out in front of the camera, so to speak. It's more behind the scenes. And so as chair, I take care of a lot of the logistical stuff that needs to occur so that the faculty can do their work.
Got it. Okay, awesome. I've been in there before. It actually feels so homey being in there. They're all very nice. So what has Cal State Fullerton done to promote Hispanic Heritage Month?
Well, I think that there has been a very full calendar of events over the past several weeks, and these events have occurred in many different spaces on campus and have been sponsored by various offices, and those offices are everything from the president's office to ASI, including individual departments in different colleges. So actually it's been a very, very busy month, and I think that the reason why it's so busy here on Cal State Fullerton is it's not just that we are a diverse college campus, but it's that we really do embrace the notion of our diversity. And so I think that there have been wonderful events that the President's Office has hosted in which they brought a guest speaker onto campus, and it was at the Fullerton Marriott on campus, to local student sponsored events, whether they were through the Chicano Resource Center or they just were sponsored by academic departments. I just think that there's been a very, very eventful month, but we continue because in the next couple of weeks the campus is going to be holding a day-long event to commemorate Dia de los Muertos. And so that'll be basically from early in the morning all the way through the evening in terms of a series of events. So even though there's a specific month of activities, we actually have culturally related events for all of the various cultures that are represented on this campus throughout the year.
That's really great. Like, what else do you feel that the campus can do to, keep expanding on this?
Well, I think a lot of this is driven by students, and I do think that as students become increasingly engaged on the campus, that I think it's going to be a natural evolution. I don't think that there's anything that needs to happen that's out of the ordinary, because I just think there's a natural energy on this campus for people wanting to do things. I think that what the faculty and what the staff and what the administration on this campus do is that we try to be in a position where we can support not only student-initiated activities, but also those activities that might be initiated by faculty and staff on this campus, because obviously coming from a department of Chicano Studies, there is a good deal of activity that is facilitated and initiated by faculty in the department. But also there are faculty throughout the university who want to engage in various types of cultural celebrations, including those associated with Latino culture.
Awesome. Okay. So there's been so much going on with DACA right now. What impact have you seen on our students and faculty with everything going on with it?
Well, I think about it a couple of different ways. The first is that there is the expression that you can see. In other words, the response, the reaction that students, staff, and faculty may have that is visible. but there's also that response that is not necessarily visible, because for when it comes to DACA, it's not just a single day type of experience. It's actually something that is continuous and that the individuals encounter on a regular, everyday basis as they go through each month, each year. And so I think that there has been a pretty significant response in regards to recent events, but I also think that we have great support systems on this campus. We have the Titan Dreamers Resource Center, but in addition to that, we have the Chicano Resource Center, and we have many other offices and departments on this campus that help to support students and faculty and staff who are having a response to any DACA-related issues. I would also say that even if there are students who are not DACA students, that many students and faculty and staff can be impacted because they may have friends or family members who are somehow impacted. And the other part of it is that I think you also have a large number of students on this campus who are immigrants. So whether they're documented or undocumented, the immigrant experience is something that they're experiencing on an ongoing, everyday basis as well. So I do think that DACA has had an impact in regards to recent events, but I do think that the campus has put forth resources to help people deal with that. I don't think that it's something where, as a campus, we say, okay, we're through a period and now we go on. I think it's more about saying, how can we continue to provide support for individuals, whether they are students, faculty, or staff?
Right. And like, besides that being an obstacle, like, what other obstacles are students or faculty facing?
So I think that one of the big issues right now is sort of, as I was mentioning, that there's this pretty significant immigrant-based population here at Cal State Fullerton, and it's not just Latino students and faculty and staff. There are also other immigrant populations. So I think that part of how we need to think about this is the overall conversation that's occurring, and if it happens to be a policy debate around immigration issues or the rhetoric around immigration issues, that potentially we need to think about it more holistically, and that we need to be prepared to support and to respond to issues overall. I also think that one of the wonderful things about Cal State Fullerton is we're over 40,000 students now. But we're also serving a very large number of first-generation students, many of whom are Latina or Latino. And so the other thing is that being able to embrace these students who are the first from their family who will graduate from college, and to really be able to celebrate the fact that these students are, in a way, pioneers for their families. And so I think that we have put a lot of effort into serving those students, while also serving all students, because some of the programs that we may put in place for a specific population actually could benefit all students here on this campus. And so I think that we are working very hard. It is not perfect, but we are working very hard, and we're constantly trying to figure out new ways to serve students, including within the department.
What advice do you have for, members out there, other faculty, maybe not even just students, just people who are just here at Cal State Fullerton?
Well, I think that the number one, I don't know if it's advice, but I just think it's about be engaged, right? Be engaged. So if you're faculty, engage your students, whoever your students are. Get to know your students, right? Don't just go through the motion of being the instructor in the classroom, but really engage your students. Listen to their stories, ask them to share their story, get to know them. And I think when it comes to students who are first generation or happen to be Latino students, I think that the stories that are out there will surprise you in some cases, and in other cases, they'll inspire you. And I know that I have been inspired by my students. I am inspired by the students who are in my classroom now. And one of the things that I encourage within my own teaching is not only for my students to share their stories, but I share my stories with my students, because I think that
build that connection.
Right. It's about building connections. It's about having relationships, and I think it's a lot easier if we're communicating with each other and we're sharing, and we respect the fact that sometimes we are similar and sometimes we are less similar, and that at times we will agree and that at other times we will disagree. And I just think it makes it a little easier. And again, I just think it's about trying to not define the diversity that we are in, but to recognize it and to be able to take the opportunity to experience it.
Oh, well, I appreciate what you said. There are so many times where I wish I had that stronger connection with my professors and, felt like I wasn't just going to class and taking in what they have to say.
Well, I think, one of the things about what we've been doing at Cal State Fullerton as faculty and also the administration is trying to build more opportunities for faculty to engage with students. But the interesting part about it is that it has to be a two-person thing, so the students also have to be ready to engage with the faculty. And so sometimes students are not necessarily used to that, or they're not prepared for it. So that's where I think the faculty needs to take an extra step, right? Let's take the extra step, and that's where you can ask questions and try to inquire to know more about the student, because in general, I find that students and people like to talk about themselves and share who they are. And so I think that is something that could be very useful, not only for the student in terms of making a connection with the faculty member or the faculty member making a connection with the student, but I think it also helps faculty, right? Because the more that I know about my students, the better I'm going to be at being connected to them, the better I'm going to be at being an instructor in the classroom and an advisor or mentor outside of the classroom.
And also it makes the class so much enjoyable. I know college students have a problem of not wanting to go to class, but I know when I love my professor, I look forward to the class no matter what is going to come.
Well, I think that's one of the things, is that regardless of how things have gone before I've entered the classroom that day, is that when I get in the classroom, there's always this switch that goes on, and I just know that I have to be present. And even if I'm tired, there's this energy that I feel, because that's one of the fundamental things that I've done during my career, is to be able to serve students within the classroom, right? And so I do think it's really important. And I don't want students to learn stuff for an exam or to learn stuff for the purpose of the class. It really is information that I think that they can use with them once they're not in my classroom and once they're out of Cal State Fullerton. Again, preparing students not only to walk across the stage, but for what is going to lie beyond the stage for them in terms of graduating from this institution. So absolutely, I really do enjoy working with students in all different ways, but in the classroom, it's really, really important for me to have that switch go on.
I appreciate that. How can the Hispanic community best unite to fight against discrimination?
So I think that's a really interesting question. And it's interesting to me because I think that there may be mechanisms within the Latino community specifically, but I think the notion of how we deal with prejudice and discrimination is actually, we need to do it all together, right? It needs to be an effort that is taken on by the collective, by the community at large. At Cal State Fullerton, as I've already said a couple of times during this interview, we have many different types of diversity, and that means that we are similar and different in many different ways. And so I think that it's really about a collective effort. It's about how we build bridges, about how we develop those connections, and that we deal with each other from a vantage point of being respectful and of recognizing our respective value systems and how those value systems are manifest through our behaviors and our thinking. And so in the classroom, it's a little easier because you can facilitate that, you can structure it. So I think that the real work in terms of thinking about your question is, what do you do outside of the classroom? What do you do when you're confronted with a situation that is not structured, that you're not anticipating? And I think that that's where we have to rely on our value systems, and that we need to think about, okay, how can we respond to this in a respectful way that respects the other individual's humanity?
It's making everyone feel comfortable.
Right, and I think the other part of it is a sense of belonging, right? For students and for faculty and staff to have a sense of belonging, that we belong to a community, and to recognize, just like families, so I have there are 9 of us, I have 8 siblings, and sometimes we don't get along very well together, right? Most of the time we do, but occasionally we don't. And it's about recognizing, just like a family, that there are going to be those times where you're not all going to be in agreement and you're not going to necessarily be happy with each other, but that doesn't mean that you're still not a part of the family, and in the case of Cal State Fullerton, that you're still not a part of this community.
Right. Well, just based off everything, is there anything that you would like to add? Anything you feel people should know? Things you want to let out?
Well, I think that a couple of things is that, I have the wonderful opportunity to be a faculty member in 2 departments. I'm a faculty member in Child and Adolescent Studies, and I'm also the chair of Chicano Studies. And so one of the things that I would say is that, across those 2 departments and across the institution, because I've also had other opportunities to work with faculty and staff and administrators and students across this entire campus during the time that I've been here, is that, there are a lot of wonderful people that are working very hard, and what we do at Cal State Fullerton is not nearly perfect, but there are a lot of good intentions, and there are people who are working hard, and they're working hard really for students, right? The reason why we are all here is because it's about students. It's about people like you, right? It's about your journey. It's about not just making sure that you cross the stage with a diploma, but that you're prepared for what's beyond that stage. And so I would say that there are a lot of wonderful people on this campus who are working very hard. And there is still much for us to do. There is still a great deal of work to do, but I'm confident that we will continue to do better.
Well, thank you. That's all the time that we have for today. I would like to thank our guest, James Rodriguez, once again for joining us. You can find links to all of the important information that we discussed in the description box below. Until next time, I'm Taylor Martinez. Thank you for watching In Focus.